I'm here from the world of academia. I'm kind of here to study you. It's a good thing. So I teach at Augustana College. It's in Rock Island, Illinois. It's just down the Mississippi River from here. And it's a small Lutheran liberal arts college. My specialty is ethics. So why is an ethicist crashing your conference? Well, I'm not here to tell you how to avoid getting sued. Some ethicists do that. My style is more to be a philosopher. So here's the deal. Ethics is about right and wrong and the reasons why. As an ethicist, it's my job to name what's wrong and advocate for what's right. Here's what's wrong. Our car-centered culture, you know that. It's bad for our health, it's bad for the climate, it's bad for land use, it's bad for communities. All right. Well, here's what's right. Your work. You create places and systems that encourage better, healthier ways to move around. You have a very real impact on human health, on the health of our communities, on the whole planet. Your work really matters. It influences whether people do what's right or what's wrong. So you're at this conference partly because you already know what's right within transportation, but it can be hard to express those ethical views. So I'm going to highlight 3 major ethical ideas that pretty much everyone from every cultural perspective is going to agree with. The first one is justice, because nobody wants to be unjust. Now, justice means lots of different things. There it is, justice. It means lots of different things. It can mean fairness, like a fair distribution of goods and pains in society. What we want is balance. We don't want anybody overburdened, and we don't want anybody overprivileged. But ultimately what we want is completeness or wholeness. There's some idea of a just society that includes everyone and all of us. The complete streets model actually has a kind of justice to it. Yeah, complete streets. Now, many of our streets are unjust, right? When there's no sidewalks, pedestrians are unfairly vulnerable to injury. Yeah. The streets are public spaces, they're owned by all of us, but not all the modes have equal access. There's an imbalance between modes, and some are privileged over others. That should set off the alarm bells that say, injustice, injustice, because the worst off, the poor, are excluded from mobility, and the young and the old. So when you have a just streetscape, you're closer to something like equality. You feel safe, there's balance, there's completeness and wholeness. So when we rework the street in this way, we are committing justice, and to fail to do so is injustice. Okay, hospitality, concept number 2. Every culture has a norm of hospitality. You welcome the stranger because we all want to be welcomed. It conveys respect for each person's dignity. You need an ample welcome that communicates the value of the person being welcomed. Now, the ADA requires accessibility, but did you ever think about whether a transit system is more than just accessible but hospitable? We've all seen inhospitable systems where they have dangerously placed bus stops or grudging, sparse service that communicates that the users are not valuable. So what would transportation hospitality look like? Well, even something like shoveling snow is an act of hospitality to those using the sidewalks. And why do most cities plow their streets but not their sidewalks, I ask you, right? That's not hospitable. But we know what hospitality would look like. It would look like gracious welcome for all users. The final concept that I want to bring up is power. So power is usually defined as the ability to do something, to have agency in a situation, but it also entails certain responsibilities. And that's what I want to highlight, because power can be used well or it can be abused. And when there are power differences in a streetscape, we need to look at those with more power and whether they're being responsible or whether they abuse their power. You've seen this before, right? The pedestrian in an area clearly designed for cars, the only power that he can assert is the power to risk death in order to slow traffic. It doesn't need to be this way. If we care about justice and hospitality, then we create streets and systems that are mutually empowering, leading not to a power clash, but to empowerment for everyone, so that even those who have disadvantages or disabilities can be empowered in their mobility. That's the work you are doing. You are empowering people to have greater justice and greater hospitality. I want to bring up a story that comes from religion. Don't be afraid of religion. Religious people are on your side. I'm serious. So the story of the Good Samaritan, check this out. Okay, many of you have heard this story before. There's a man who's beat up and left for dead by the side of the road. And only the Samaritan, who is himself a social outcast, really sees the problem and is willing to stop and help the guy. The Samaritan takes the guy to an inn and he leaves money to pay for his care. That's a story in the Bible. Now, Eric Jacobson observes that if someone were left for dead by the side of the road today, no one would even see him because we'd be driving rather than walking. His point is, if we're going to create a society where we care for one another, we have to get out of our insulated metal boxes on wheels and place ourselves on the streets or in the buses where we see our neighbors. Now, we're maybe avoiding the streets because we want to avoid the need, but that's not the way to solve these problems. We got to find ways to use our power responsibly in the service of hospitality and in service of justice to create real living communities with one another. Now, sometimes it's hard to get people to see things this way. It's hard to get reluctant partners because they're valuing convenience, or they're valuing money, or they're valuing their autonomy. It's really hard to change things. The status quo is too deeply entrenched. Yeah, change is hard. But remember, every single religious and non-religious perspective and the foundation of our government values these things, values justice, values hospitality, values responsible use of power, and those outweigh money and convenience, always. So to appeal to those values can be a powerful bridge-building exercise to realize we value the same things in the end. The work that you do, it really does matter for ethics. The decisions that you make, the plans that you create, they can manifest justice. They can create gracious welcome, respect for dignity. They can moderate that power into responsible hospitality. Your work really matters because it influences whether people do what's right or what's wrong. Now, there's a lot more to be said about ethics and transportation, inclusion, exclusion, gender, safety, self-sacrifice, community building. I want to talk about it all, and you guys are so inspiring, but my time is up. So please, I want to encourage you to get in touch with me if you want to keep the conversation going. Thank you.